What do people mean when they say, race is a social construct? It's a phrase you hear a lot and it can be confusing. Does it mean that the physical differences we see between people aren't real? No, not at all. The physical differences are real. But the concept of race is about how we, as a society, have decided to group and label those differences. And more importantly, what meaning and power we've attached to those labels. The physical differences are real. Humans are a diverse species. People have different skin tones, hair textures, and eye shapes. These observable traits are called phenotypes. They are real, and they are a result of genetics and our ancestors adapting to different environments over thousands of years. For example, darker skin tones with more melanin provided more protection in parts of the world with intense sun. So when we talk about race being a social construct, we are not denying that these physical variations exist. We are talking about what happens next. Creating the categories. Understanding that race is the act of taking this vast, continuous spectrum of human diversity and sorting it into a few distinct, separate boxes. Think of it like a rainbow. There are millions of shades of color that all blend into one another. But our society decided to draw lines and create a few main categories: red, orange, yellow, green, and so on. We all agree that red is red and blue is blue, but the exact line where orange becomes yellow is something we made up. Race works the same way. Society drew lines across human diversity and created categories like white, black, Asian, etc. We know these categories are invented and not based on a fixed natural reality because they change depending on where and when you are. For example, the rules for who was considered white in the United States have changed over the last 200 years, with groups like Irish and Italian immigrants not initially being seen as fully white by the dominant group. Someone considered black in the US might be considered a different race or ethnicity in Brazil or South Africa. If race were a purely biological and scientific category, its definition would be the same everywhere, at all times. But it's not. Attaching meaning and power. This is the most critical part of understanding the concept. After creating these racial categories, societies began to attach meaning, stereotypes, and, most importantly, a hierarchy of power to them. Historically, this wasn't just an innocent sorting exercise. Theories were created that claimed people in one racial box were inherently superior, smarter, more capable, more civilized than people in another box. These ideas, though now completely debunked by science, were used as a powerful tool to justify real-world actions. They were used to justify colonialism, slavery, and segregation. The idea that one race was superior was the rationale for taking land, exploiting labor, and denying rights to people deemed inferior. This created systems in government, housing, education, and law that gave advantages to one group while creating barriers for others. The effects of these systems have lasted for generations and continue to create inequality today. The scientific view. Modern genetics has proven that there is no biological basis for our social categories of race. There is no race gene. In fact, the genetic differences between any two humans are tiny. We share about 99.9% of our DNA. And the tiny amount of variation that does exist doesn't map neatly onto our racial boxes. There can be more genetic diversity within one so-called racial group than there is on average between two different groups. So, the physical traits are real. Skin color and other features exist. The racial categories are not. The boxes we use to group people are invented by society. The consequences are very real. The social hierarchy built on top of these invented boxes has created real, lasting advantages for some and disadvantages for others. Understanding that race is a social construct doesn't mean it's not real. It's real in its consequences, but it helps us understand that the inequalities we see are not natural or inevitable. They were built by society, and therefore, they can be dismantled by society.